Everyone knows that ninjas work in the shadows, but design ninjas can make the shadows. How do we go about doing that? Well, find out in just a moment here in the Work Smarter Not Harder Dojo with me, Tony Harmer, aka the Design Ninja. So here we go. We've got two ways we're going to do this. We're going to do this a simpler way, and we're going to do this in a more advanced way. And I'm also going to try and show you ways for if you're in an earlier version of Photoshop, okay, which you might be. But if you're in the most current version, then you'll have the full flexibility that I'm going to be showing you here. So I have a background. This is from Adobe Stock. This is what we're going to be using as our kind of dojo for the day here. And we've got our ninja mascot on top of that, although this, of course, could just as easily be a piece of real photographic reference. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that layer. I'll just rename the top one to Ninja, there like so, and the bottom one I'll rename to Shadow, like that. And it's this one I'm going to work with to begin with. Now I'll turn off the top layer just for the moment, and you'll see that both of these are smart objects. So what I'm going to do is add a solid fill layer, okay, above this one. I'm going to make this one nice and dark, like so. And then I'm going to move between these two layers here and hold down the Alt or Option key to clip the color fill layer to the object beneath. I'm then going to select both of those and convert them to a smart object. Now I'm using the menu just here in the layers panel, but you could also do what I've done and create a shortcut to do exactly that. You'll see that if I go into the layer menu here and into smart objects, I have assigned the shortcut Option Command S or Alt Control S to convert to smart object. And if you're doing it quite a lot, then it's worth investigating that. And you'll find it in the keyboard shortcuts at the bottom of the edit menu. So I'll use my shortcut here to create a smart object. I'm just going to rename that Shadow actually, there like so. Okay, and now I'm going to get started. So I'm going to turn on my layer above because I kind of need that, but make sure the shadow layer is active. I'm then going to go up to the edit menu and come down to perspective warp. Now I don't need these guides that pop up just here. I'm simply going to click to create a warp grid and bring that down like so. So it covers the ninja. Doesn't have to be too precise. Yeah, just nice and easy like that. That should do just fine. Then I'm going to tap W on my keyboard. That switches me into warp mode. You could also click the interface at the top there to do that if you wanted to. And now start to pull this around. So I'm going to pull this corner down like so. Okay, and then I'll bring this in towards the foot there. And I'll bring this one down too. I'm not worried about the directions of the light in the background. This is a separate light. This one just here for the purposes of this demonstration anyway. And then I'll bring in this point here like that. Then if I hit the tick at the top or hit enter on my keyboard, that will be applied. Now at the moment, of course, that is just a bit too strong, but we'll fix that shortly. First of all, what we're going to do is soften the edges of the shadow, okay, and make it look as if the shadow is losing its power as it moves away from the object that is casting it. To do that, I'm going to go up to the filter menu, come down to blur gallery and choose tilt shift. And the tilt shift workspace opens up like so. And there's a series of widgets here that I can use. Now the center widget is where I can center the actual effect from. And the outer ring of that allows me to control the amount of blur. And you'll see at the same time that a slider is moving in the panel on the right, and that's something you could do as well. These lines specify the start, okay, and finish of the actual blend here, and this is the transition area between the two. And you can use these widgets just here, okay, the small widgets to actually rotate this around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the start fairly close here to the center, okay, and then the sort of area here of transition, I'm going to narrow that down to this region just here. Okay, and that's nice and soft there, but I think it could be a bit softer, so I'll just increase the blur amount like so. Something around about that I think is working pretty well. So I'll hit OK. Now, either of the two things that I've just done, the perspective warp and the blur gallery, can both be changed by simply double clicking on them and going back in and changing what you need to change. Okay, so in this way, they meet the smart working criteria of being editable, being repeatable, and being completely non-destructive. So let's go ahead and fix the next thing, which is the blending issue. So this is really easy because I'll just go to multiply here. So it kind of shows through, and then just bring the opacity down to about 30%, I think, something like that should be pretty good. Now, of course, the color here is a bit off. So what I'll do is add a solid color layer here. The color really doesn't matter at the moment. So I'll hit OK. Then I'm going to hold down Option just here and make that clip to the layer beneath. Then I can double click on the color swatch here in the Layers panel and use my eyedropper to sample shadow colors from the existing shadows in the image, which will make it much more believable. When I hit OK, I can then just go ahead and model the opacity of the layer beneath until it meets what I want. And remember, any of the things here, as I just said, can be changed. Nice and easy. So let's crank that up a notch and we'll do something slightly more advanced. Okay, so we're going to take a more advanced approach, okay, to doing the same thing, but just with a bit more finesse and also a little bit of cleverness added in between. So to start off with, if I turn off my ninja layer here is ready for action, hitting the streets, and my shadow layer is active, I'm actually going to use the camera raw filter to give me the shadow. So I'm going to hold down Shift and Command, that would be Shift Control on Windows, and tap A to get to the camera raw filter, which lives in the filter menu. You'll see camera raw just there. And I'm going to drop the exposure right the way down. I'm going to push the contrast all the way up. I'm going to drop the shadows all the way down and the blacks all the way down. I think that should just about do it. So I'll hit OK, and there you are. I've got my shadow. Now this time, if I turn the layer on above, I'm going to go back to the Edit menu, come down to Perspective Warp. I'll do something slightly different. Okay, now if you didn't have a current version of Photoshop, if you're working on something older, you could do a similar thing by using Free Transform, right-clicking and choosing Warp to bend things around. It would be a bit harder and wouldn't be as non-destructive, but you could do that. So I'll start off then by creating my first grid, and I'll bring that up into place like so, okay, and then I'll come across like this, just there, and then I'm going to create a second grid by clicking further up, okay, and if I just come along there and there, round about that region, doesn't have to be too precise. And then you see I'll come down, and when I get that blue highlighting, the two grids are now connected. Now you can still fine tune it. It's not until you switch to warp, either by clicking this button or tapping W, do things change. And you'll notice the grid has now disappeared. So if I bring this middle one here just down to the edge, now really it should, I guess, be going the other way. Okay, but this will do just for the purposes of this demonstration. You'll see I'm bringing these down to the wall like so. Okay, and then just modeling these areas in, just moving them around just a little bit. I can then go ahead and expand this all the way up and out like that. And I can keep going with the modeling. Yeah, it works pretty well, like so. But now I've got the effect of that bend in the wall just there. Okay, nice and really, really simple to do. Once you're happy with it, and of course you could also do this in 3 sections if you wanted to, or perhaps even 4, it depends on what you're doing. But you could do that, hit the tick, you then need to go ahead and soften off those edges. Now again, if you're in an earlier version of Photoshop, you're going to be kind of stuck with just using Gaussian blur here on the edges, or actually brushing those edges in. But of course, we in the newer versions have access to the blur gallery, so we can go ahead and use that. We can go for tilt shift again, and then we can bring this down to where we need it to be, down towards the bottom here. Okay, it will be a bit sharper down to the bottom. Let's bring this down. Let's change this transition area and make that nice and narrow. There, like so, and let's push up the blur just a bit more. Nice how that kind of folds over. You could even do it the other way, go diagonally through, and that would work. Hit OK. Now to change the blending mode of the layer the smart way, make sure that you have the Move tool selected. Hold down Shift and Alt or Option and tap M. That takes you to the multiply blending mode. And then you can use the numbers 1 through 0 to change the opacity. So if I go here to 5 on my keyboard, that goes to 50%. If I go to 7, it goes to 70%. So guess what 6 is? 60%. But what if I want to go to 65 and see how that is? Just tap 6.5 in rapid succession, and there you go. Nice and easy there. No color adjustment needed for the shadow. I think that works perfectly well the way it is. But there you go. You've got a set of completely editable things here that you can go ahead and make shadows as much as you need. And make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and we're done for now. So join me next time here in the Work Smarter, Not Harder dojo. See ya.